Hi, and welcome back to the Ziggy Zone. Today, we're going to talk about all of the player movement between the NBA and the NFL. This past weekend has been like insane. It's like one thing after another. This unexpected move, that unexpected trade. I mean, who can keep up with all of the madness? Nevertheless, I'm here for you. America, me. So, I'm going to do the NBA first, just because it's not as much because trades are over. So now it's just like waivers and people being, free agents being picked up and things like that. So we'll just start there at the NBA. With the first few things that I hadn't realized, the first person being Kendrick Perkins. So Kendrick Perkins, his claim to fame was with the Celtics, and then he was traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder. He's been there for a while. He hasn't really been playing a lot, so you almost forget that he was in the league. But then at the trade deadline, he was traded. You guys remember he was traded to Utah. Well, he was waived by Utah, and Cleveland picked him up. I was watching the game. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. It's Kendrick Perkins. What's going on? So that was the first thing. Kendrick Perkins was waived by Utah City Jazz. Utah City Jazz. Terrible. Utah Jazz. Actually, Salt Lake City Jazz. What is the name of that team? Anyway, the Jazz. I think they're in Utah. They play in Salt Lake City. Whatever. Who cares? Charge it to my head and not my heart. And then in a very interesting game, it must have been on Sunday, yesterday. It was yesterday. I was like watching the Warriors and the Clippers game, and Nate Robinson was on the court. I was like, is that Nate Robinson? I was like, I thought Nate Robinson was at home in Seattle. Like, I'm sure he bought out his contract when he was last traded. How did he get from Seattle, well, albeit to Oakland? So it appears that Nate Robinson has signed a 10-day contract with the Clippers on Saturday. Chances are that he'll probably go through two 10-day contracts and then be signed on for the rest of the season. Jamal Crawford, it was really interesting. I mean, adding Nate Robinson really adds to their guards. Clippers have guards for days. I know Jamal Crawford is battling an injury, and then you have Chris Paul and JJ Redick, and so Nate Robinson to add to that, and then you have Austin Rivers, who's Doc Rivers' son. So it was interesting that the Clippers went with Nate Robinson. I'm really happy that Nate did find a team because I really do like him. He's still young. I believe he's like 30. I think he's only 30, or he'll be 31 or something like that this year. And so it's just unfortunate, after he left the Knicks, he's sort of been bouncing around. So I'm happy he was able to find a team. I just thought that the Clippers was an odd fit, being that they're already really guard heavy, their roster. And then in another stint with the team that he was once signed with, Michael Beasley is back with the Heat. And Michael Beasley, I think he was with the Timberwolves, I want to say. He was with a struggling team for a long time, and I want to say that was the Minnesota Timberwolves. And since he left Minnesota, he's just really bounced around. He was in Miami. I think he was in Memphis for a while. He's just been with all of these teams, and I know that there were some issues, with him having issues with playing time, or I'm not sure if there was injury. I don't remember any reports of that, but it was just really some temperament issues and, his dissatisfaction as far as, playing. But Michael Beasley is back with the Heat, so that will be interesting. My guess is that with, his name. What's his name? You guys know his name, who used to play for the Raptors. I'm so upset. Bosh, that's his name. With Bosh having the blood clot and everything in his lung, and, whether or not, when he'll return. So Michael Beasley adds definitely a little bit of depth to their roster. The Heat, they're a good team, but then again, it doesn't take much to be good in the East. So that's that. So that was the three things that really stood out to me this last week. On the NBA front, Perkins actually being claimed, picked up for Cleveland. Nate Robinson, signing a 10-day contract with the Clippers, and then Michael Beasley actually signing back. I think he's with a 10-day contract with the Heat. Now over to the NFL. Woo! Mind blown. Like, seriously, like the free agent market is like insane. Like, I guess tomorrow, which is like March 10th or whatever, is supposed to be like the first official day of the new NFL season. So like the 2015 season. And so tomorrow is the day where contracts, like where teams can formally do their contract signings and everything for the following year. And let me tell you, oh my goodness, like since like midweek, I want to say like Wednesday or Thursday last week, it has been like nonstop as far as who's going where, who do you think is going to leave, which team is going to resign people. Des Bryant, they don't know what they're going to do with him. They don't know what they're going to do with the receiver. No, that is Des Bryant. DeMarco Murray. That's, the Cowboys. So, in interesting news of the week, first things first was LaShawn McCoy was traded to the Buffalo Bills for a backer, I think a linebacker, Kiko, something like that. And that was insane because LaShawn McCoy, Shady McCoy, he's like super good. He's like a solid running back. Like, one would think, oh, why would you trade LaShawn McCoy? Like, there's no issues with his numbers. He's still really young. He still has a lot in the tank. What's going on, right? So nevertheless, that's what the Philadelphia Eagles decided to do. LaShawn McCoy was shipped up to Buffalo in return for, I believe, a linebacker or something like that. And then actually that deal, they came to terms with that deal, I believe, today. They'll sign it tomorrow. I guess that's how that works. But what was interesting, because most people were saying, and even myself, I'm like, who gets rid of LaShawn McCoy? Like, why would you do that? Like, you want someone that's still in their prime to be on your team, because the running back position is a really hard position, and most guys don't last long because, you're pounding into the ground all the time and, being beat up. So, word around town is, and it looks to be that way, Frank Gore will be signing with the Eagles. And that makes me sad. Y'all know I'm a Niner faithful, but I'm like, I knew Frank Gore, once Harbaugh was gone, I knew Frank Gore. They interviewed him like 20 minutes after Jim Harbaugh was let go, was released or whatever, fired, whatever you want to say, split amicably, didn't matter. Like 20 minutes later, and Frank Gore was like, oh, I'll see. I'm like, Frank Gore is setting the 49ers. I was surprised that he actually decided to go east to a very cold city because it like snows in Philadelphia, and he's from Florida. You know what I'm saying? He went to school in Florida, and then he came out west to play for the 49ers. So when you think about the climate issues in Frank Gore, he's a few years into his 30s. He has a few years left, in the tank. I'm not sure if that will really work for him as far as his body and his production wise. But that is what he's doing. It makes sense. I believe the Eagles have Darren Sproles up there, so I guess they'll use those two in tandem, which could work for a few years for the Eagles, but nevertheless, it's a loss for the 49ers, who at one point running was their identity. So that is why, in hindsight, we can see LaShawn McCoy being traded to the Bills because they needed to make room for Frank Gore. Right? So that's two, right? We got Shady McCoy to Buffalo, Gore to the Eagles. And then I was very happy. Everyone knows I was very excited when former defensive tackle for the Arizona Cardinals, Darnell Dockett, he was released a couple Fridays ago, and I was ever so glad that he decided to sign with the 49ers. I thought that was a natural fit. I'm glad he felt the same way because I'm about to be rolling around San Jose looking for him. I'm coming for you. I know I'm not in my glory right now. I'm conditioning my hair. I'm conditioning it. Anyway, so that was that. Another defensive lineman that was on the market, probably the hottest free agent of this year, was Ndamukong Suh of the he was with the Detroit Lions. He actually has taken a max deal with the Miami Dolphins. I think that's it's for 120, 130 mil, like 65 mil guaranteed. That's a lot for, I think, a defensive player in general, especially a lineman. Especially a lineman such as Suh. Love his style of play. You know, he's just really gritty and out there. But let's face it, he's always doing something. Like, if he's like not stepping on people or, I mean, that's what he's normally doing. You can see him, like, he's always stepping on someone, like, unintentionally. He's always stepping on someone. So, I mean, that's a risk with him. I mean, he's a good player. Don't get me wrong. You know what I'm saying? He gets results, but I just don't think a defensive player ever is worth over $100 million. I mean, life is priceless. Everyone, our life is priceless. You can never put a tag on someone's life. But we're talking about a sport and we're talking about business. And $100+ million for a D lineman or a defensive guy in general, or maybe a secondary position, a backer, maybe a corner, not even a safety. I mean, don't get me wrong, the defense is important. Defense is important, but $100+ mil, whoo, get your money though. I'm not mad at you, Suh. Get your coin. Get your coin. You've done a lot of good work in Detroit. I watched you up there, and perhaps Miami has always been a team that was on the cusp. So that might be interesting to see, what you can fire in those guys. I think a lot of energy was taken out of them with the Incognito and Martin situation because football is a tough sport, and it's like, oh, well, how tough should you be? And I think that the Martin Incognito situation really undermined the historical culture of football. So maybe Suh can go back and help sort of reignite that rougher culture within the team. So with that said, that is the movement so far coming from the NFL. It's going to get real this week, and I'll have a recap of it for you next week. We'll also talk about next week some baseball. We're in spring training. Woo woo. Go Giants. All right. Ciao.